Since he arrived in Louisiana as superintendent of the Recovery School District, John White has had a single focus: making schools better for the children of this city and this state. Now, as the superintendent of education for the state of Louisiana, John is working to improve every facet of education, from early childhood through high school graduation. In his years with Teach for America and with Joel Klein in New York City, John saw firsthand the power of educational innovation matched with the highest standards. He continues to advance the idea, unapologetically I'd add, that students will only give us their best if we show them that we expect the best. None of this comes easy politically, and John has certainly been through his battles, but he has never flinched from standing up for what he knows to be right. He's a great leader. He's a leader that, in my view, leads with a real passion and a real heart, but also with an incredible courage and passion. And so I'm honored to have him here today and proud to introduce him. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John White.
A replay of last night's events rolls through my mind. Except the scene or two.
Little Louisiana music. Well, welcome to New Orleans. It's a great privilege to be here. Mike Milkey, I saw you there a second ago. Congratulations, my friend. Well deserved. Congratulations, Noble. Congratulations, Achievement First. Congratulations, IDEA. It's a great honor to be here, Nina, and to the Alliance. It's a great honor. Funders, thank you for those of you who made this possible. And to all of you who are teachers, my sincere thanks for taking time out of your summer to continue to improve your craft for your children this year and in years to come. Paul Pasternak said it, but I want to emphasize it. He's a son of New Orleans. New Orleans is a great American city. And I really hope that, especially if you've not been here before, especially if you're from out of town like I was originally, that you take a little bit of your time here in New Orleans to get out and explore this great city. You can see a lot of it in a day. It's a place of extraordinary triumph, and I hope that you take advantage of the time in this great city. Your conference theme this week is a chance for every child, and I wanted to reflect on that a little bit in my thoughts this morning. So I'm going to talk about New Orleans. My mind, as I'm sure yours is, given the events in Charleston, given the events in Ferguson, given the events in Staten Island, my mind is drawn toward this American project of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. My mind is drawn toward this question of every child, and my mind is drawn toward this persistent and undeniable fact that we are so far from achieving the American dream, or even the remote possibility of it, for so many children in this country, and I am inspired that it is that brings us here today. I need you also to reflect and to understand the historical significance of the place in which you sit, and not just the city in which you sit, but the very building in which you sit. I need you to understand that 10 years ago, this building was the site of a colossal failure of American society, a colossal failure of government to watch over and to provide for the most disadvantaged among us, a colossal failure in spite of a promise to provide sustenance and care to people who are poor and homeless, a colossal failure to follow through. And yet at the same time, out of this man-made tragedy, this tragedy that came such unimaginable injustice, this man-made tragedy that produced such unconscionable suffering, also came the opportunity for rebirth. And that charter schooling, friends, is at the heart of this rebirth. So this building in which you sit today is a symbol both of the calling, the mission, and the failures that underlie it, and the possibility of rebirth, the possibility of the American vision of a chance for every child. And I'd like to share with you this morning what this city, what my newfound city, has taught me about a chance for every child and the role of charter schools. Now, I'm greatly honored to have been preceded in my job by Paul Pastorek and by so many others who came before us as we sit in this building today to do the work that I'm about to describe. But understand that what existed in the city of New Orleans prior to Katrina was a daily tragedy in America. It was a city whose expectations for children, especially low-income children, had become so corroded that the valedictorian, just 3 months before Katrina, at a high school just 2 miles from where you sit here today, received an 11 on the ACT and could not pass Louisiana's graduate exit exam after 5 attempts. Understand that this was a school board that was so corrupt that not only was it being investigated by the FBI, but that the FBI had actually opened up a detail office in the school board facility. Understand that this was a city that was so mismanaged educationally that there was not even a capital budget to repair a broken pane of glass in a school building window. And so even today, when you drive around our city, you will see that in the buildings that survived Katrina, where should be a clear pane of new glass, exists only scratched up plastic plexiglass. It was quite literally a city where the students could not see the future, could not see the outside world from within the walls of their school building. It was a daily tragedy in America. And then Katrina. A school system with no schools. A school system with no students. A school system with no money was not a school system at all. And for years before, the response that lawmakers and policymakers like me had to those challenges was more bureaucracy. I taught in Jersey City, New Jersey. That's where I started my career. Go Jersey. I said, go Jersey. And in the early 1990s, when the Jersey City public school system had similar challenges, not of this magnitude, but nonetheless, the bureaucrats in Trenton saw fit to step in and run the bureaucracy of Jersey City. Well, lo and behold, when two defunct bureaucracies become one, they do not a great school system make. Surprise, surprise. And so these visionaries like Paul Pastorek in New Orleans, these people like Sarah Houston and Walter Isaacson and Leslie Jacobs, they saw a future that could be different. They understood in New Orleans that the educators of their city, not outsiders, the educators of their city had passion, had creativity, and had commitment. And they understood that what was called for in this time of rebirth was not more bureaucracy and regulation, it was less bureaucracy and regulation. They understood that the needs of the poor and the disenfranchised could not be served by politicians or by distant bureaucrats. And so they did an amazing thing. Rather than a school system, school board takeover by the state, they enacted a liberation of schools from the bureaucracy. They placed schools in a condition of recovery, and slowly, in that recovery out from under the bureaucracy, they allowed local educators the chance to liberate charter schools. One by one, successful New Orleans educators, long-time New Orleans educators, many of them, names that may be familiar to you: Doris Hicks, Jay Altman, Alexina Medley, Mickey Landry, Sharon Clark, Ben Markovitz, Renee Carter, Kathy Reidlinger, and dozens of others. Not outside influencers, not privatizers, just brilliant, committed New Orleans educators. Because a charter school in Louisiana, just like in your state, it's not some crazy exotic thing. It's a thing where local community members step up, they sign a contract, and they say, we're going to get this done. In exchange, the government trusts them, and the government in Louisiana sends 98 cents on the dollar right to the schoolhouse door. Parents choose the school that is best for their child, and the schools deliver on the promise to the parents. See, that's no strange thing from outer space. That's just what they call common sense. In fact, it's so commonsensical, it's actually pretty similar to how successful school systems look the world around. Hold educators accountable, trust them to do their jobs, give them the resources, and let the parents choose. It's pretty simple stuff. And it's worked in New Orleans. Before the storm, 1/3 of New Orleans children achieved even a basic level on our state examinations. Today, 2/3 achieve that level. Before the storm, the high school graduation rate in our city was 55%. Today it is near 75%. Before the storm of 3,500 seniors, not even 700 went to college. Today, of 2,650 seniors, nearly 1,400 went to college. Our system's gotten smaller. But just last year, we nearly tripled the number of young men and women who attend college the year upon their graduation from high school. And for all the naysayers out there who say someone's cooking the books, maybe the kids got rich, a study released just Friday would indicate otherwise. Economists at Tulane University say, and I quote, "We are not aware of any other districts that have made such large improvements in such a short amount of time." And for anyone out here who thinks, I just want to send a message to anyone out here who thinks that when a massive hurricane and a man-made flood befalls your city not just once but twice, that somehow that means everybody gets wealthy, all the special needs students somehow go away. I just want to tell you that the researchers looked at that one too. And they said that if there was any demographic change at all, it was minute and had no effect on the gains that I just described. You see, we live in a time of polarizing politics, and I know because I read the blogs too. There are a lot of people out there who want to use New Orleans for their purposes. They want to throw stones from the outside and say that this must be true or that must be true. The facts, however, would say otherwise. And it is time to tell the bloggers that it is time we get beyond these polarizing questions and put this question to bed. The charter school reforms in New Orleans have worked. End of story. We're doing a much better job. We're just doing a much better job of educating kids today than we were 10 years ago, and that's a fact. But friends, the reason I think it's so important that you're here today is not just that. See, I think there's another side to what's happening in New Orleans that is just as important as everything that I just said, and maybe even more important when it comes to charter schools. And it's not just true in New Orleans. It's true in its sister city, Baton Rouge, 1 hour up the road, which is doing amazing things in charter schooling. It's true across our state of Louisiana, and it's true across these United States. We've doubled college going in the city of New Orleans, but think about this. We still rank number 3 in America. 26,000 students, young people, between the ages of 16 and 24, who are neither employed nor enrolled in a school. 26,000, number 3 in America. We represent a paradox, our city does. Because just as charter schooling has reformed our education system, and it has worked, we understand in the most concrete way just how much there is left to achieve in spite of those reforms. And we, charter schools, no one else, are responsible for rectifying this immoral circumstance. Now, some people look at that idea of systemic responsibility, and they think about charter schools, and they see a contradiction between the idea of systemic responsibility and charter school autonomy. But we in New Orleans believe, as I suspect you do, that charter schools are nimble. We believe that charter schools are problem solvers. And we embrace, as charter schools, the challenge to innovate society's most vexing problems. I have faith, great faith, in the charter schools of New Orleans, of Baton Rouge, and of Louisiana to take on the problems of equity, the problems that come when you commit to serving all students. And I do not accept, because I do not see any evidence whatsoever of it in our city and in our state, that there is some kind of dichotomy that exists between charter school autonomy and taking systemic responsibility. I just don't believe that that is a dichotomy that truly exists, in spite of others who seek to portray it that way. I believe in accountability. I believe in choice. I believe deeply in school autonomy. But I believe in more than that too. I believe in autonomy. I believe in accountability and I believe in choice, but I believe in more than that too. You see, I think in a state that 5 years ago had 40,000 kids on the child care registers and today has less than 15,000, I think that is shameful. And I believe charter schools can show us a better way to educate early learners. I believe that a state that graduates roughly 1/3 only of its high school students with disabilities is not truly accountable for student learning. And I believe that a city that is beset on a daily basis by the siege of violence in our streets and by the siege of a flood 10 years ago is one that must address the mental health needs of its kids. And I believe that charter schools can show us a path. I believe that charter schools can show us a path to quality special education and to true health and mental health services for our young people, to diagnosing the needs of all learners. I believe that a state in which only 20% of adults have a 4-year university degree must be accountable for a plan for the other 80%, just as it must be accountable for taking down the cost of higher education that creates prohibitive barriers to the poor from completing college in the first place. And I believe that it is charter schools that will show us the promising path forward on both the cost of higher education and a plan for the other 80%. And though I may accept it as a condition of today's education system in my city and in my state, I know in my heart that it is not right that black children, that brown children, and that white children in America tend to attend separate schools as a matter of their neighborhood geography. And I believe that charter schools will innovate in showing us a path beyond that injustice. Some will say that charter schooling is a choice reform. Some will say it's an accountability reform. And the reformers don't do early childhood. Reformers don't do mental health. Reformers don't do special education. Reformers don't care what happens after senior year. Reformers don't do CTE. Reformers don't do diversity. That charters do none of those things. I see daily evidence in my state and my city that that is not true. And I would tell you that far more interesting, I believe, than are our test scores or our graduation rate in New Orleans is the fact that we are going to, in the next 10 years, surmount the challenges that come with serving all children. I believe that we will serve all children and we will serve them well, not in spite of our schools' autonomy, but I believe we will serve them well precisely because our schools are autonomous charter schools. I believe it because by design in New Orleans, our schools serve every child, and because we have faith that the people who know these kids, who love these kids, who are accountable for serving these kids, liberated from bureaucracy, set free to create solutions for these kids, that you will be the ones who will create and show us the path to solutions that government has yet to design. I invite you to return to New Orleans to watch us do that. I hope, Nina, that you are back here in another decade celebrating our successes, but more than that, I know that this push to serve all children, I know that this is a push that is happening in Baton Rouge, in Louisiana, in Chicago, Mike Milkey, and across America. I know that charter schools are not a right-wing reform. I know that charter schools are not a left-wing reform. I know that charter schools are not a reform unto themselves, but I know that charter schools are not traditional in and of themselves. I believe that charters are great problem solvers. I believe charters are great inventors, and I believe that you, as charter school leaders and educators, are inherently and intrinsically seekers of justice. And I believe you are doing everything you can, as we are in New Orleans, to give a chance to every child in this great nation. I thank you so much for coming to our city to celebrate that most important of missions. Have a wonderful week in New Orleans, and God bless all of you.